Hey everyone, let me get all situated and ready to go. I am super excited to be continuing our Wandering Wednesday series here at the San Dieguito River Valley Conservancy. Well, here at my house. Still practicing, of course, social distancing and the stay-at-home order. So we are going to be talking about wildlife cameras today and a little bit about what their purpose is, how they're used, and some fun pictures hopefully you guys were able to check out. They are super, super fun. I really enjoy being able to look at those every month that we get them. So I'm super, super stoked on that. Hey, Cassidy, thanks for joining us today. And I have a couple notes for myself, so don't mind me if I'm just looking down. And then also later in the live, I hope you guys will be able to be looking at some of these pictures simultaneously, maybe on another tab on your computer. And I have mine open as well over here so I can check out any images you might be referencing from that album that we have been linking for the last week. So for those of you that are just joining us and you maybe don't know who I am or what the Conservancy does, I'll tell you now. So my name is Ana Lutz-Johnson. I am the education manager for the San Dieguito River Valley Conservancy. We are an environmental-based nonprofit here in San Diego, California, and we focus our efforts on the San Dieguito watershed, which starts all the way up in the Julian area and then extends and finishes down in Del Mar. And so our river is 55 miles long, which is quite long. And there's a lot of diversity in the habitats and the wildlife that we see. And that's how the Conservancy was birthed in order to really protect and preserve and share both natural and cultural resources. Our organization was founded to be able to do all of that for the next generation. We want to make sure that we're leaving behind a better world than when we came into it. And this is a part of the work that we do. We're talking about wildlife cameras today and the photos that we're seeing, but this is a part of the work that we do. We collaborate a lot with different agencies, with different organizations in order to create management plans, acquire lands in order to protect some of these really well-known species and some maybe that you don't know very well. So as a quick recap, this is the third week of our Wandering Wednesdays. The first week that we had was the beauty of pollination. So we talked all about pollination. And the second week was a celebration of the 50th Earth Day, and then also calculating our carbon footprint. I was so impressed with you guys and your responses and willingness to share. And I thought that was so cool, and that we were able to kind of share and figure out ways that we could decrease our carbon footprint. Again, thinking about that next generation that's coming after us. So today, like I said, if you're just joining us, we're a couple minutes in now. I think we'll get started on the topic at hand. And I'll have a couple questions for you guys as throughout the live. So hopefully you'll be able to go ahead and comment down in the comment section. If there's anything at the end of the live that maybe you still had some questions, please email the Conservancy. We'd love to talk to you. You can email the Conservancy at sdrvc@sdrvc.org. So you can always email us any of your questions, and then we can be directed on who will be able to best answer that question for you. So let's get started. So wildlife camera traps. This is something that I wasn't greatly familiar with when I started with the Conservancy about 3 years ago. And it is honestly one of my favorite things. And technically, it's not one of the tasks that is assigned to me for my position. Our wonderful conservation manager, Jonathan Applebaum, manages our camera traps and also the photos and what we do with them. But I'm really lucky and I get to help out sometimes times look at those photos and then of course share them with our students and our community, and you guys love them. But I love them too because it really gives a peek into our wildlife while still maintaining a respectable distance. So thank you to our conservation manager, Jonathan, for doing such a great job. And also he helped create the album that we are linking. So special thank you to him for setting that up for us tonight. So to backtrack a little bit as to why do we have these wildlife camera traps? Like, yes, it's fun. Yes, it's interesting. But what is the bigger scope here? And we are a part of a monitoring program. It's a worldwide monitoring program, but we have one specific to our watershed. It's called Citizen Science. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with citizen science, but if you are not, that's okay. Really cut and dry. Citizen science is public participation in scientific research, and specifically for the San Dieguito Citizen Science Monitoring Project. It's about monitoring our watershed and collecting data. And the reason that we're collecting all of this data is because we want to make sure that we're making really informed decisions moving forward for several aspects of the conservancy that we do. So one of them is land acquisition. So when we're looking at acquiring new land, new property, whether that's the conservancy or in partnership with other organizations, we want to make sure that this piece of land is a really, really important spot and is going to be able to benefit greatly from our work. And then not only from our work, but the wildlife will be able to benefit greatly. So having that some of that connectivity in habitat is a really big thing. So we want to make sure that we're connecting spaces and making sure our wildlife can move safely throughout our watershed and even from watershed to watershed. So that's one thing, is land acquisitions. And then also we have adaptive land management. We are constantly looking at our land management procedures for the properties that we have throughout our watershed, because we want to make sure that we're making informed decisions. And the way that we are making informed decisions is by looking through this data. And additionally, when we are doing restoration projects, we want to see what species are we seeing and maybe what species aren't we seeing. So this is using these wildlife cameras is a really good way to just get like a baseline of what's out there. So once you get that baseline, you can continue to collect data, and that will give you some of those answers that you're seeking. And the last thing, and my favorite thing, is using it for educational initiatives. So it's really hard to connect with wildlife if you don't see it. And so using these wildlife camera trap photos is an excellent way to engage our students and in our community in learning and loving what we have in just our backyard. I think it's super popular. Like every, youngin is raised on learning about like rhinos and hippos and lions and giraffes. And I think that's great. But I also love that we're able to talk about the local native species that are so specially adapted and precious to this area. So super, super fun. So a little bit about why are we already talked about the reason why these cameras are used. So for citizen science, collecting data, making informed decisions for acquisitions, land management, things like that. But why not just go out and track wildlife regularly? So this is something that is actually done. There's special tracking teams actually in San Diego that do amazing work, but it's usually done in conjunction with wildlife cameras. And there's a couple reasons for that. Is one that I try to really emphasize, especially to our younger kids that are so excited to see wildlife, they just want to go hang out with them, is that we want to make sure that we're giving respectable space and distance for our wildlife. That when we're out hiking and being in these natural open spaces, the ones that remain, we want to make sure that we're not causing them any stress, especially if they have any young with them. They could get extremely stressed, and then their stress response might be aggression. So we want to be able to keep that safe distance and be able to collect data over long periods of time. And so we use these wildlife cameras, we set them out for 1 month at a time. And after that month, we go ahead, collect the data, bring it home, and process it. And then also, we use these wildlife cams because it allows us to be in many places at once. I will always say that there is never a shortage of work to be done, but there always seems to be a shortage of scientists. So that's where citizen scientists step in, people like you who are able to go ahead, set up these wildlife cams for us, help us learn and make these decisions together, because we can't be out in the field all the time. We have to balance the different obligations that we have. So having these wildlife cameras is a really good way to still collect data and kind of feel the heartbeat of the watershed and the species that we're trying to protect and provide habitat for, without disturbing them and then without overstretching ourselves as well. So that's a little bit about why we're using those wildlife cams specifically. So kind of how we already talked about, how is the data used? So we'll take that data. We usually get anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 photos per camera a month. So it just depends on how windy it is, and we'll get into that in a little bit later. So super, super interesting that we're able to take this information. And if you know anything about data, and even if you don't, we like to make decisions with information gathered over long periods of time. So it's always better to see, look at data, have the camera in the same spot year after year after year, and see what differences what differences are occurring in that space. Whether are we seeing the same species? Are we seeing new ones? Are we seeing as many individuals? Are we seeing less individuals of that species? So that, again, it kind of keeps that heartbeat, like we're able to really kind of feel and understand, and maybe foresee any potential problems that might be going around. If there's a decrease in species or individuals in that species, we can adjust, again, that adaptive land management plans that we have. And a really other huge concept in citizen science, and then also gathering this data, especially wildlife camera data, is sharing it with other agencies and organizations. I mentioned that in the beginning, but this is a really, really big piece of the puzzle. Because as you guys know, people, we have jurisdictions and boundaries and cities and lines, and nature doesn't always really pay attention to those. They move and they go where they feel safe and where they're going to be able to raise their young and be able to find food. So we love doing this. And that's collaborating with other organizations and agencies. So we can see maybe if one individual is moving from watershed to watershed or city to city and so on and so forth. So it's a really amazing process to be able to share different types of data. There's different data, not just wildlife cam data that's shared between agencies. There's a ton of different kinds, and I'd encourage you guys to look at and participate as well. So we're leveraging our network, because as I said earlier, there never seems to be a shortage of the work, just shortage of people that are able to do it. So that's where the citizen science work comes in, where we have the public, everyday people coming in and helping us. So if you are interested in helping us process some of these wildlife cam photos, please shoot us an email. I will mention our email address again at the end of this live, or you can just go on the Conservancy's about page, and then we have an email address there. But if you guys are interested in processing some of this data, please let us know, because we have multiple cameras out at a time and tens of thousands of photos to go through, and we want to make sure that we're being able to look at that data in a timely manner. So if you're interested in that, please let me know. So yeah, that's why we're all about collaborating with people. We're leveraging our network. We're involving the community, and really helping people feel established in San Diego and even in North County. So sometimes we don't know what's in our own backyards. So I have a couple. This is usually what I show the kids, but if there's kids watching, woohoo! But if you're an adult, I hope you enjoy this anyway. This is the Conservancy's little mascot. His name is Dieguito. He's a little squirrel. So I take him with me when I do like little tabling events or when there's like different like community fairs, things like that. And I'll leave him. I'll go ahead and leave him there for today. And then also we have an unnamed little rabbit. This isn't as anatomically correct, even though Dieguito isn't quite there yet either. But we have a little rabbit. As you know, we have many rabbits here in the county. They're great food source for our predators, and they're just adorable. We don't have a name for our rabbit. If you guys want to go ahead, comment below. What do you think our rabbit's name should be? Because we have Dieguito, so like San Dieguito, after our watershed. So give me some ideas. What should we name our rabbit? I haven't come up with anything yet. And I've had him for about 3 years. So I'd love your input. So we'll set him aside. And we'll set Dieguito aside as well. So go ahead, let me know in the comments, what do you think we should name our rabbit that we have? And now the super fun part, I think is super fun. We're going to actually talk about the camera, and I won't spend too long on this because I want to make sure we get to those pictures and your questions because it is so, so cool. So this is one of the wildlife cameras that we use here at the Conservancy. And there are different types that you can use, but they do pretty much the same thing. Some of them are more advanced, some of them are just simpler. So it really depends, but this is the one that the Conservancy uses consistently. On the exterior, you can see, well, there's our label, but this is the exterior of the camera, and it's metal. So it's this is actually a protective case, and so this is a little loud, so you might need to block your ears a little bit. Not as loud as it usually is, but that's a protective case on the outside of the wildlife cam that helps keep it protected and also camouflaged. Unfortunately, we haven't had too many occurrences, but some people do try to steal wildlife cameras. So that's why we have these protective camouflage cases on that also can be locked. And then also you see these two straps in the back. That also has a buckle mechanism. And so what happens is when there's actually some really, really specific instructions as far as how to set up wildlife cameras. I have done and failed at setting up a wildlife camera a few times because I put it too low, or I put it too high, or it was angled a little bit, pitched backwards, or it was pitched forwards, or the dreaded, I set it out in a sun exposed area, so all of my images were washed out, but it's a learning process. So there's a whole protocol on that if you end up getting a wildlife cam for your backyard, even to put around like a bird feeder or a bird bath. These are super fun. So they're really, really great. And so a little bit, I have to pull this out. It's kind of loud. But anyway, so we have, like I said, the Bushnell HD. And at the very, very top, this is what the case looks like that you can take it out of. But at the very, very top, these shiny little dots, those are the infrared flash / like emitters. And you need to keep in mind when we're taking photos, especially at night, we don't want to scare or shock the wildlife that we're trying to take pictures of. We don't want to invade their space. So this is an infrared light, and we collect black and white photos at night, and then during the daytime, they are in color. And then in the middle, hopefully you guys can see, kind of looks like that. It's like a red reflect. That's actually the camera lens. And at the bottom here is probably the most significant part of the camera. It's the motion detector. So these cameras are motion detected, meaning if it was on, which it's not, it's off, and you waved your hand in front of it, it would go ahead and take some pictures. Some wildlife cams are set on like take one picture, one every minute. And I'll talk a little bit about this as I'm opening it up, is there is a little settings menu within these camera traps that allow you to dictate how sensitive you want the shutter to be. And that's really beneficial because if you're putting this camera trap out in a really grassy area and the shutter is super sensitive, you're gonna get like 10,000 photos of grass going like this. So just being mindful of the area that you set it up in. Sometimes you have to be a little bit more mindful of what the settings should be. So it's a little clunky, but on the left right here where I'm trying to point is where some AA batteries go. This puppy requires a lot of juice, but again, we leave them out there for 1 month at a time. So, and then at the bottom here, so we say collecting this data, moving the data around, processing it, all of that good stuff, but how do we collect it? Is it in the camera? Well, for all of us that actually used cameras like in the early 2000s, and maybe even now, I remember when I tell this to kids, they don't understand what like memory chips are. Like that's totally foreign to them. It's so cute. So you can kind of see this little slot down here. And that's where a memory chip goes. So just like one that you would put in a regular camera, you obviously want one that has greater storage, because if you have one that has low storage and leave it out for a month, it might only collect data for a week or so. So really quick before we move on, this is what the menu looks like. And this is the on-off button and some different arrows so you can change parts of the menu. That's where you're able to set the date and the time in case the camera hasn't been used in a while, and that's also where you can change the shutter sensitivity. So again, making sure that you're being mindful, or we're being mindful of our camera settings, site specifically. So all of that fun stuff. Last thing I want to do with you guys, and then I promise we'll get to those photos, and we're gonna do these quite rapidly, is I have 4 different little molds of casts of different wildlife prints, different tracks, and I would like you guys to guess them. So this is the first one in comparison to my palm. Which animal do you think this came from? And these are all native species to Southern California. Note on this one, do you see any nails? If you don't see any nails, that's an indicator about what type of animal that is. And then we have this one right here. It's quite small. I'll give you guys a hint on this one. They are usually associated with thieves or bandits. They look like they're wearing a mask. So quite small, have individual digits. And this one usually stumps people. Remember, it's kind of hard to see, but I'm trying to show you guys. Do you see any nails on this one? Remember, that's a really big indicator when it comes to what type of animal this might be. Okay. Ooh, Cassidy, love that with the mountain lion. Very good. And Andrea, good job. Raccoon. Morgan, awesome. Raccoon. Cassidy, good job. You all got the raccoon. I always think it looks like a little baby hand. And then last but not least is this one. This one's painted. Has 2 little toes. How were 2 little toes? And let me see. So the first one, I saw someone ask that this, someone I think was thinking it might be a mountain lion, which is correct. That's awesome. And you can, one indicator that this is a feline type of species is there are no nails. So when animals, or specifically felines, aren't fighting or they're not trying to catch prey, their nails will retract. And then canine species always have, just think of your house cat or your house dog. Dogs always have their nails out, just like coyotes. And this is actually a fox print. So this is kind of the one that most people get tripped up on. And I see some people, yep, you guys all got the last one, which is our mule deer. I love mule deer. They're so sweet. All right, love that. Thanks for everyone's input. That was awesome. Okay, so best part of the night. We have a couple minutes left. If you guys want, I have time to stay on live a couple extra minutes long. So tell me which photos you really liked from the Google folder that we attached to the Facebook Live, posts that we had. So there were 26 photos, 26 photos that were in the album. And all of them, of course, had different images of wildlife that we captured. They came from different areas from around our watershed. And some of them are really, really interesting and unlikely to see. And so, Cassie, you're asking about if we have native fox. So that's something that actually I learned. I had to ask our conservation manager about I was like, am I seeing foxes on here? Because this is definitely not coyote, because the coyotes aren't this short and don't have this short and stumpy leg, and also their muzzles look different. But foxes are in the same family as they're more closely related to canines than they are than felines, interestingly enough. So it's on my iPad. I don't know if this will work. Maybe it is. So this is a picture, Cassidy, of one of the foxes. It's a gray fox. And then there's also another image where there's actually a pair of them. This one's a little bit washed out, but still really, really cool. A little bit washed out. You can kind of see it. So yes, we do have foxes, but they are more likely to be up in the more heavily wooded areas, and definitely not closer down in the coastal area. So these images were taken up on Vulcan Mountain. Shout out to our partners up near Vulcan Mountain Foundation. They have a fantastic tracking team and wildlife cam team. So they're awesome. Andrea, you asked about the bird standoff. Let me find that picture so I can show it to everyone. Maybe if they didn't get the chance to see it. That's image 11, if anyone isn't sure. I think it looks so funny. So this is a standout. I'm not sure what type of hawk it is, but if you go ahead and pull up the link, you might be able to see on your own that there's a hawk in the middle, and it looks like there's a woodpecker on the very far right, and they just look like they're in a standoff against each other. So that one always makes me laugh, that's for sure. And then Andrea, you also mentioned the California quail, which was somewhere. Might have to flip through these. But yeah, these are always just such a treat, and I love looking at them with people because, and even for myself, because I always learn so much. And I never see what I expect to see. Here it is. Yes. So image 16 is all of the California quail. And this was taken at one of our properties near the Del Dios Gorge that's going up towards Escondido. And the California quails, I think, are just the silliest looking birds, and they're super cute. And I don't think it's coincidental that they're the California state bird. And it's really interesting. Everybody knows their little tuft that kind of hangs off the front of their head. Those are actually, I think, 6 separate feathers. So it looks more like a bell, like a growth, but they're individual feathers that come together to make that growth all together. So super interesting. Here's one that I thought you guys might enjoy. This is the second image. And go ahead, keep commenting. I'm going to stay on just a couple minutes extra in case you guys have any questions about these images. But this is called the California thrasher. And this is the second image in the album. And I think it's a really interesting bird when we're talking about specifically adapted species to the area, that it has this adapted beak in order to allow it to forage and eat insects and everything. Oh, that's awesome. May, you commented that there was a fox spotted in Solana a couple of weeks or last week. That's awesome. So that's another really cool reason why we rely on eyewitnesses and then also these cameras, because, you know, maybe we have this idea of, yes, of course, this is where we typically see these animals, or most people believe like mountain lions are strictly solitary. But, you know, even different data that we've gathered over the years sometimes might challenge those beliefs that we have, and then obviously will allow us to adapt our land management protocols that we have. I'll show you guys a couple more before I sign off. Remember, if you guys have any questions about any of those photos that were in that album, yeah, on the live right now, if you're watching, the link is in like the live description if you're not sure what link I'm talking about. So go ahead, pop on there if you have any questions. And there's also a 15-second delay on this stuff. So I'm trying to wait it out for you guys. This one is one of my favorites. Kids always love this one. This is a little fawn, and for a mule deer fawn that was taken up near Vulcan Mountain. It is actually fawn season. They usually start coming around springtime and then even into early summer, from what I have read. This one I thought was really funny. We were talking about prints earlier. It was these little guys, our raccoons. And we have a whole brood of them, a whole family. You can see those at the very, very bottom, those light reflective eyes. I think they're just so funny. And they're really quite intelligent, a little mischievous, but I always love that image. And that image was taken again at the Del Dios Gorge. And talking about like where we're putting these cameras, we're putting them in strategic places we know that, or we expect that wildlife to be at. So we're not going to put it in a really arid, urban, or disturbed area. We're going to put it in an area where, you know, there's water and other resources that we expect to see them at. So a couple more pictures, and then I will let you guys go. I really appreciate you being on here tonight and engaging. It's so much fun. These are probably my favorite to look at. And yes, Andrea, they are little gangsters, the raccoons. These are some coyote pups, quite adorable if I say so myself. And we got some continual images from them that day. They were just hanging around there. So they have those nice big ears that allow them to hear. And this is a really good example of that. Perching up, ears pointed forward so they're able to detect, is that mom, is that danger, is that prey, things like that. So love looking at our little coyote pups. They're adorable. And then we have a mule deer here. You guys can see the reflection off my computer. I apologize. But we can see, if you can see a little bit, he actually is starting to grow his rack. And it's still quite fuzzy. So you can tell that he's a younger male. And then also his rack is just starting to grow in, because that velvet will come off eventually. These are a little bit hazy, but they're super, super interesting. And this is one of the last couple images I'll show you. This is, you can kind of see the reflection of the eyes. Sorry, guys, I know it's a little funky. But this is a mountain lion. And so this mountain lion photo, you can see the second one, especially the tail, that it has that darkened tip, and also just the size of the animal. So most people expect, or maybe they don't, but my impression when I first started learning about mountain lions was that they would only be in the very, very eastern mountainous areas in San Diego. And I think that's partially true. But this picture was actually taken in San Pasqual Valley. And San Pasqual Valley is near the safari park, so a little bit farther east than that. And I know other partners that have documented mountain lion tracks in their watersheds even further west, so closer to the ocean, which is pretty interesting, pretty impressive. Let me see if there's any other photos that I want to look at before we close out for tonight. Again, if you want to comment any questions on these pictures, please let me know. That's what I am here for, and I am happy to talk through some of this stuff with you guys. I don't think we got a good look in at our bobcat friends, so we'll end with that. And yes, Cassidy, I agree. They are all adorable. So this is our wonderful little bobcat friend. They are so cool, and I love looking at images of them because up close they look kind of obvious, especially looking at these pictures, but we have several images that really shows how effective their camouflage is. And it's so impressive how these native species are adapted so well to their environment. And it's so much fun for me. I'm lucky. I love this part of my job. Last one we'll conclude with is our inquisitive deer. So this is a doe. It's a female mule deer, and very inquisitive, quite curious. Sometimes we do get nice like woo expressions from the different wildlife species when they notice the cameras. They can be very curious. So super, super cool. And as Cassidy said, yeah, bobcats can be really elusive. So a lot of people that spot bobcats, they either usually live by canyons because they are really popular in canyons. And even we see a lot of them in the western part of our watershed, like Escondido to like Del Mar. So we see a lot of them there, but we also have images of them extending up into Vulcan Mountain area and things like that. So that is what we will conclude with today, you guys. Thanks for indulging me and letting me go over a little bit tonight. I think this is probably one of my favorite topics to talk about, especially with the community, because it's just so fun and so interesting to see how special our wildlife is, and that it's in our backyard, and that if we're able to participate in citizen science, then we can be a part of the solution to some of the problems that our wildlife is facing. So if anybody, like I said, is interested in volunteering with citizen science, and especially the wildlife cam photo trap review, please go ahead and email us. Our email is sdrvc@sdrvc.org, and we'll be able to get you all set up, chat away. If you have any other questions, please go ahead and email that email, and we'll get on into it. And for next week, I'm really excited. Again, go figure. We're going to be talking about burrowing owls, and all about burrowing owls, their habitats, and they're really special creatures, and the work that the safari park and the conservation group there is doing, and the different projects and things like that. So tune in, make sure to go ahead and look at the live screenings of the enclosures that they have for the owls that they have at the zoo. They have one inside the nest where they're sitting on some eggs. And then we also have one of just a picture of inside their enclosure. So go ahead, take a look at those. We'll be posting resources throughout the week per usual. And I hope you guys had a fun time tonight, and I really appreciate you coming on and chatting with me and in the comments. I can't wait until we can convene together again, but I'm really lucky that we're able to connect with our community and educate and learn and have some fun through technology. So wishing you all a great rest of your week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay connected to nature, guys. Have a good one.